So this is the 8th video in this beliefs series. I can't even believe it's gone this long, but I really wanted to cover everything as far as I know so far. And this 8th video on self-love is actually, I think, the most important key concept in learning to let go of our limiting beliefs. Because it's the thing that holds everything together, all of those bad beliefs, all of those limiting beliefs that we have. The lack of self-love is what really holds all those together. And in order to crack all of those other ones, in order to let them go and to change them, you really have to go through self-love. You have to learn to love yourself. But the problem was I wasn't even done there when I finally learned that. I finally learned that actually to learn to love myself, I first needed to forgive myself for literally everything in my life, the stupid little things I've done, the big things, everything. And with the peace that came from that, I was finally able to come to love myself and in turn begin knocking down all of those other limiting beliefs. So I'm going to let you know exactly how I did it here and also help you to understand why exactly this is and why it's so important, these two things, in order to get to the limiting beliefs. But before we get to that, I wanted to welcome you here if this is your first time. I'm Michael Kowal, and I like to call myself a cheerleader for exploring everything inside of ourselves, our thoughts and our beliefs and our souls and our spirits and our feelings and everything else like that, because I believe that that's truly where it begins, where we can create the life that we want. If we don't do it inside first, we're never going to see it outside. So if you haven't already, I'd say come along and subscribe. Come along for the journey every week. I do a different video on this exact subject, on everything inside, with the whole goal is just to get us to the place where we can create the life that we want. So come on along and have a fun time. I think you're going to enjoy it. So let's get into this, self-love and self-forgiveness in order to change your limiting beliefs. You know, when I finally learned what I'm going to tell you here, what I'm going to go through in all of this, when I finally learned it in the end, that's where I could look back in hindsight and see how incredibly important this whole batch of stuff is. That's why I say that this is probably the most important video in this belief series. It's the most powerful concept in here simply because you're able to let things go finally. I was able to. But it wasn't until I got to the end of it that I could look back and understand how powerful it was. Because I've always understood. I mean, I think we all get the concept we need to learn to love ourselves more, right? Okay, yeah, we got to do that, right? And yeah, we've got to forgive ourselves for all of this stuff. But it wasn't until realizing that the only way that I could really truly change my limiting beliefs and change my life was to, first of all, learn to love myself, but even before that, to forgive myself. That's when it finally hit home. That's when I understood, oh, that's what I need to do to clear all of these things. It became just a simple thing, a simple action that I could take. It was no longer emotion. It was no longer anything else. It just made logical sense. Oh, this is how I do it. And then it made sense. Because until you forgive yourself for everything, we sit there, right? Okay, we sit there generally in our lives, and we've got those things inside of our head, right? Generally eating ourselves up. Okay, you're a jackass, you're this, you made that mistake, you did this wrong, you're a bad person, you're a bad person, you're a bad person. So those thoughts are constantly going off in our heads, right? I think you could probably relate. If you're watching this video and you want to change your limiting beliefs, believe you can understand. I get that, right? But the thing is that as those things are going along, if you still have all of those going on, how in the hell can you possibly learn to love yourself? You can't. You can't love yourself while you're sitting there at the same time saying, I'm a jackass, I'm this, you did that wrong, you did that whatever, as nitpicking constantly in our heads. And what I realized is the lack of self-love is what holds all of our limiting beliefs hard and fast like a wall. An almost impenetrable wall that is difficult to knock that thing down. But once you get rid of the glue, which is the lack of self-love, the wall begins falling apart. Not necessarily by itself, but maybe, you may experience that. But from there, you can go with the limiting beliefs. But to even start that process of breaking down that glue of the lack of self-love, of learning self-love, we have to get rid of that stuff that's even deeper, that constant going at ourselves. We have to forgive ourselves. So that's where we're going today. So let me start off this whole process, and I'll tell you exactly kind of how I arrived at this whole thing. I have this one limiting belief that I hold, which is that I don't believe in myself. I doubt myself. I don't believe in myself. I'll take an action and then I'm worried. Did I screw it up? Did I do whatever? It's crippling. I mean, it's freaking killed me most of my life. It's terrible. And through this whole meditation process of getting rid of a limited belief, and that's at last episode, which if you haven't watched it, definitely watch it, because it talks about how I use meditation to get rid of limiting beliefs. And I was doing that, and I was making some good, strong headway in really all of my limiting beliefs. It was great. It's a powerful method. But the thing is that as I kept going at, let's say, that belief, like I don't believe in myself, I couldn't quite crack it. I couldn't quite get under there and just completely root it out. So then I would flip to another limiting belief, and that, again, same thing. I would get, some good progress through that meditation technique, but it wouldn't quite get it out of there. So always in the back of my head was this idea, that, okay, well, you got to learn to love yourself, just a generic kind of idea in my head. You got to learn to love yourself. But it also makes sense. We all have to learn that, right, in the end. So finally, after going at these other beliefs wasn't working, I said, okay, fine, the hell with it. Let me try learning to love myself, because maybe that will do it, right? And so I put on my big boy pants and went after self-love. And I used the meditation process, and it was great. And again, I could feel the love for myself. I just working on that in many, many ways, like I talked about in the video. I would do it overall, plus work on the chakras individually, just, everything and anything I could, feeling as if I loved myself, right? Learning to get to that. And I learned a lot. I started progressing pretty well. But again, I reached that wall where it just wasn't like snapping all away, right? You understand, where you get down deep and just get rid of it. You're not through with it. So I was getting frustrated throughout this whole process. And then, of course, as if you've done this stuff for a while, you probably understand. You get synchronous events, right? You get kind of like little things happen, little taps on your shoulder, mentally, spiritually, whatever, kind of telling you, giving you some guidance of where to go or what to try next. And so one day I was walking down the hall over here, and I was walking past a bookshelf. And I'm kind of looking for something to read, or just my general sense of frustration that, my life is not what I want it to be. I can't get rid of all of these things. And so something caught my eye. I pulled a book off the shelf, and it happened to be one of the Seth material books. I think one of the early sessions books. And in it, Seth was talking, and of course, you open it up, and classic thing, you open up to one page and start reading a little bit. And I can't remember the exact quote, but what it talked about was that one of the deepest problems that everyone has in the world and in this life, it's part of life, which is the feeling of guilt and shame, and for things that we've done and haven't done, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he said, what we all need to do is to learn to forgive ourselves. And in that moment, something clicked in me. And I sat there and I go, that's where I kind of got the concept. And I sat there and I go, oh my God, right. Because if I've got all of this stuff going on in me, this nitpicking and I'm bad and all of this, how in the hell can I even begin to learn to love myself if my mind is constantly doing these things to me? So then I threw out the learning self-love, and I slipped into my meditations, learning to forgive myself. And I went at it hard. I went at it for a good 2 to 3 weeks, I think a month or longer. And I was just determined. I was religious about it. Every day I went after it. And I'll also, so I guess what I'm saying here, first of all, is that here's the technique part of this whole thing, is you can learn to forgive yourself for everything using the meditation technique. But also I'm going to link to a video up here because I did a video last summer, I think 7 months ago, on how you can forgive yourself, learning self-forgiveness. And in there I have 2 other techniques. Basically, I take what I really love, my one gratitude technique, and I apply it towards self-forgiveness. And then also another technique which I use sometimes in meditation, sometimes other times, where I sit there and I just kind of go, okay, I'm looking to forgive myself for everything inside of me. And what I'll do is I'll have many ideas that I can do, and I'll go over this in just 1 second. I'll get into the specifics of that. But what I'll do there is I'll also then ask my guides, your angels, your God, all that is, the universe, whatever you want, what else? What else? You can keep asking, what else can I forgive myself for? So between those 2 techniques there, and I would say check out the video. It's really pretty good. It gets into detail on all of this and a more full explanation than what I can do here. But do those along with the meditation technique. And I was able to get down in there and truly forgive myself until I could feel this great peace inside of me. In the beginning, when you start the process, of course, you're going to feel like squirmy, right? I mean, you're going to go, I don't want to do this. Forgive myself. You don't want to remember back to the things you've done and all of this, but stick to it. As I said last week, this is a process. It's a practice. Give yourself the time. Like I say, I gave myself 2 weeks, I think a month or more to do the self-forgiveness aspect of this. And now let me get into some specifics about the self-forgiveness, because I learned some things as I went through this process, because it is hard. Let's say you're in meditation and you want to forgive yourself. And the end point that you want to get to is where you forgive yourself literally for everything that you hold against yourself in your life. And in order to do that, what we first need to do is what I did was I started with the specific things, okay? I started with specific things that I've done throughout my life, whether that's big things or small things. And you can start easily with things that you've done to other people. And of course, that breaks down into a couple of categories: the things that you've done against other people that you did intentionally or accidentally, right? We're also talking about those things that we're all very embarrassed about. We all have them. We all have stupid things we've done in our lives. Everyone has done that kind of stuff. And you know the kind I'm talking about, the ones that you don't even tell anyone near you. You've never told anyone. You have to learn to forgive yourself for even those things. So what you begin with is you start with the process of forgiving yourself for things that you've done against other people. And in the meditation process, what you could do, what that might look like is, okay, let's say, you think back to when you were in 3rd grade and you kicked some kid, right? You knocked him down and shoved his face in the dirt or whatever, some violent wacko thing. You have to forgive yourself for doing that. You have to understand that you did that and you took that action, but you have to forgive yourself for that. You have to forgive yourself for the things that you accidentally did, the harm you caused, the words that you've used against other people, the actions you've taken, the thoughts you've felt, the emotions you've had, the anger, the rage, everything you've got to forgive. You have to do this inside meditation, and you have to do it repeatedly. You begin that process of just feeling the forgiveness, of giving that to yourself. And in the process of that, you'll feel peace. You'll start to feel an opening around these specific incidences that you go into. You'll feel an opening around that. You'll feel finally a peace. And then once you've felt that for all of those, then you start going at inside of yourself also. You start forgiving yourself for the things that you've done against yourself. The times where you do peck at your head, where you call yourself names, where you say you made mistakes, you're bad, you're ugly, whatever. You have to forgive yourself for each and every one of those, for all of those. This whole thing is a process of 30 days of just forgiveness for yourself. And you can begin to learn to enjoy this also. It's the release that comes from that. It's finally giving yourself peace after all this time. And then once you've done all of those, the one interesting one that I found was where I learned I had to forgive myself for when other people hurt me. Because in those times, I would always attack myself because I wasn't stronger. I didn't stand up for myself. I didn't protect myself. I didn't do the things that I needed to do to stop the harm against myself. And I needed to forgive myself for all of those. You need to forgive yourself and forgive yourself and forgive yourself and forgive yourself deeply and wholly for all of those and every one of them. You can't leave anything out. But what ends up happening in the process is you do, like I keep saying, you come to peace with everything and you begin to want to learn more. You want to find those other things that are inside of you, the events that you've forgotten, which is why I say you can sometimes ask your guides or your guardian angels, what else? What else can I forgive? What else? Because you're getting to this point where you've got that complete peace inside. And that's what I eventually got to for myself. I got to that peace. And I still blame myself for things, but it's to a measure of peace that we probably haven't felt ever in our lives. And we'll probably have to keep doing this for the rest of our lives. But you take care of that biggest chunk up front. And you forgive yourself, and you get to that peace. And once you get to that point, and you'll feel it, you're kind of starting to feel, okay, I need to move on to something else because this is getting a little boring here. That's when you move over to self-love. And then you, in the meditation process, you get down in there and you feel that. You feel yourself loving yourself, coming to love yourself more and more. You find those things inside of your life where you go, oh my God, I was pretty amazing there. And wow, the compassion that I showed or the kindness that I showed. And you begin to love yourself. You find all those specific incidences. And then you feel it as a general overall thing. You feel yourself kind of loving yourself and you kind of start laughing in the end because, you kind of go, well, that wasn't so bad, and it's not like it's this crazy wacko love or anything like that. You just feel, oh, this feels nice. This feels like what I should have felt all of my life. And even if you haven't been shown love throughout your life, you can learn to love yourself because the entire world is love. That's all you are. You are love. And in the end, that's what this process really, truly is coming to understand that, how much that you are love, how much I am love inside of me. And that's all that can exist inside of us. And I think that's what the whole process of being in life here on this planet is to learn that we are love inside. That's what the whole process is. And this whole world is made out of love. So I'm getting a little off track there, but this is kind of what I've been working on lately, which I'll get into videos on this too. But once you then start working in meditation on love and feeling that self-love, that's where you'll start to feel that kind of like glue, that kind of bonding of all of the other limiting beliefs kind of begin to let go. Maybe not disintegrate all the way, because I think, again, I keep saying this is a process. I know for me, I still have to keep working on all of this stuff. But I can tell you completely that it has changed my life to do this. And now things are happening a lot faster for me. And I've been able to go at some of these limiting beliefs that I've been working on to get rid of those, or at least bring them down to a level where they're not constantly bothering me each day or every moment of my day. And they'll flare up sometimes, but it's easy to handle after that. And then once you get to this point, you get to, as I said, just kind of like look at love. You get to kind of like have fun in your life. You kind of get to come to peace. You get to enjoy things, and you get to feel great. So that is what I wish for you. And so don't do what I did. Don't do it the backwards route, limiting beliefs to love, to self-forgiveness. Forget all that. Screw that. This week, sit down and first of all, learn to forgive yourself for everything. And understand that you're on this path. And when you do that, you're then going to get to self-love. And from there, you're going to get rid of all of those limiting beliefs that you've held. You're going to place the beliefs that you do want. And that is where you are going to change your life. Try that this week. Have fun. Have a ball. Love you.